Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to the school board meeting for March 23rd. We are going to begin with workshops, and we'll start with a call to order and a roll call. Mrs. D'Angelo?
Mr. Fayette? Here. Ms. Catulli? Here. Mrs. Davidson?
Here.
Mrs. Hill? Here. Mr. Forehand?
Here.
Thank you. Our next order of business is adoption of the agenda for tonight. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0. We now move on to community and staff participation. And it looks like I have 4 cards here. So there's a 3-minute time limit on it. You can finish out your sentence. Obviously, we don't want you to stop mid-thought. So our first speaker will be Laura Tanner, please.
Hello, guys. Long time no see. Good evening, board and Dr. Polvo. About a month ago, many people, including myself, asked for extra time to review the proposed elective ethnic studies. I also heard, review the proposed ethnic studies course. I also heard the board received about 40 letters requesting the same. I cannot read. I'll stand back so I won't spit on anybody. All requests were denied. The board passed the course 5-0 and stated there were no objections to the course, just misunderstandings. Well, generally, misunderstandings come from lack of communication, and it's in my opinion, the community at large was largely ignorant to the creating of this course through lack of effort to involve them in the process. I want to be clear and restate again, we are not against ethnic studies class. We just wanted time to review the course proposal. Well, that's water under the bridge now. The next thing is the course process and curriculum selection. I've emailed each board member, Andrea Reed and Dr. Polvo, requesting we choose a constructive ethnic studies curriculum. I want to add my 2 cents about how I believe the district should proceed with the curriculum selection, not just for this ethnic studies course, but with a K-12 curriculum that would reach the district's stated goal of inclusivity and diversity. A neighboring district, a neighboring district embeds diversity and inclusion in the K-5 literature anthology series. The stories tell about a wide range of American people groups who, while facing discrimination and segregation, found ways not only to become successful in America, but became the beacons of inspiration and established blueprints to others who wanted to participate in the American dream. I shared this thought with my son, and he said, "Oh, like you mean encouraging people about the possibilities afforded in America? I think that's a good idea, Mom." So do I. So let me share just a few of these stories to give you a taste of the literature that they are doing in a neighboring district. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, the first person to ever perform open heart surgery. An American of African-American descent, he established a black hospital in Chicago in 1891 to provide needed medical services to the community. A young black man stumbled into the hospital with stab wounds to his heart, and Dr. Daniels, in a completely unprecedented and scandalous move, chose to open up the patient's chest and sew up his heart. The man lived, and Dr. Williams was sought out far and wide to share this knowledge of this medical miracle. Susan I'm going to mispronounce her name, La Fleche Pacote, was a Native American doctor and reformer in the late 1800s. She is widely acknowledged as one of the first Native Americans to earn a medical degree. She campaigned for public health and for the formal legal allotment of land to members of the Omaha tribe. William and Ellen Craft, runaway slaves who escaped slavery through the Underground Railroad but returned to Georgia after the Civil War to establish a school because they knew the importance of education and lifting individuals out of poverty. Elias Cifuentes, an American of Mexican descent who came to America as a teenager, determined to open up a restaurant. He worked as a dishwasher during the day and studied English and business at night. After the restaurant he worked in closed down, he opened up his own, and his determination and success was featured in a book by Sharon A. Hayes. I think my favorite story out of the 4th grade anthology series was Food from the Hood, A Garden of Hope. It detailed Crenshaw High School students and teachers' determination to rebuild and restore the community after the devastating riots in 1993. It powerfully demonstrated what Americans can do when they work together for a common good. So constructive ethnic studies curriculum builds bridges between Americans by learning the strengths, struggles, and successes of fellow American groups. United, we stand on able to ignite unlimited possibilities that can happen in America. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Belen Smith.
Hello, greetings everyone, and all of you concerned community members, board members, and supervisors. My name is Belen Leticia Herrera Smith. I'm a first-generation American on my dad's side of the family, and first and foremost, I am a God-fearing Christian, a God-fearing woman of God. Please bear with me as I use my index cards for failure of having a good memory, and I discovered that I can still speak from my heart and use the index cards, especially since we only have 3 minutes. So all concerned community members want to see a constructive ethnic studies course. We all agree on that. So let us get to the point, since I only have 3 minutes. Christine Sleater and McGaugh Zavala were found to be liberal professors who already embrace and promote critical race theory. Let's not forget that, critical race theory. This theory has received a lot of negative news because of its highly racist and discriminatory beliefs. Well, let's see what the beliefs are. Basically, it's a theory. It is a theory that paints all whites as evil oppressors and all non-whites as victims. Victims who are so oppressed by every systemically racist American institution that they can never get ahead. So Ms. Reed has demonstrated her choice of authors, Sleater and Zavala. They've all been given 71 pages via email to the members of the State Board of Education, to the Governor Gavin Newsom, to the State Board of Education President Linda Darling Hammond, to the Honorable Tony Thurmond, and this is what they did with it. Because never mind the facts, they have already made up their minds. That's what is the facts. Those are the facts, okay? So, you've already heard it, and I'm not going to reiterate what everybody's here. Concerned community members, concerned parents. They're very concerned. We don't allow prayer in the schools. Shame. Shame on everybody who voted for that. No prayers in the schools, but yet you're going to allow the children to chant and invoke prayers from the Aztecs, from the Mayans. Well, where did that get them? Where are they right now? You tell me. Where did that end up? Where did they end up? They're all gone. They're extinct. These are a bloodthirsty, extinct people. And I can say it because in my family history, there is Aztecs in my family history. I understand that. This is going way back and way back, but that doesn't matter. That's just something that happened, but they are extinct because they are bloodthirsty people. When they fight to the death. When they play a game, it's not for points, it's to the death. They don't exist anymore. So this is what you want our children, the community members' children. You want them to be chanting this, but yet you won't have prayers. So I'm not here to tell you any of these messages that everybody else is going to be speaking, but I'm just here to give you a message from God, who created us, because God is alive and God is well, and He is greater. He's greater than Sleater, He's greater than Zavala, and they will not succeed in destroying our children. Whatever you, board members, supervisors, whatever you do, if you decide to pass this curriculum or not, to teach these children in LaSalle, okay? You will not succeed in destroying our children. I want you to know that right now. Whether you vote yes or no, you will not. Because our children will pass the course, and through prayers, through our prayers, through their prayers, what their parents have taught them, bring up a child in the ways of the Lord, and they shall never depart. So no matter what indoctrination you put in them, no matter what chance you force them to take, they will pass the class. But it'll go in one ear out the other. It won't mean anything, because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And our children are children of God as well. So the students won't have the negative effects of this. They most certainly won't. So, okay, so the state of California passed this bill. While we are sleeping, this is what happened. While we were all sleeping, we were asleep. But you have woke the sleeping giant. The sleeping giant. Who is the sleeping giant? The prayer warriors. Ooh, did I say prayer? To God be the glory. Thank you, Jesus. Oops, did I say Jesus, the name above all names? Who is greater than you all or anybody here? To God be the glory. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, but oops, if I've offended you, my apologies. Thank you, Jesus. God is in control. Our Creator always wins. Our God always wins. There's power in the name of Jesus. There's power in prayer, whether you believe it or not. We believe, and that's what matters. That's why our prayers will be effective. That's why your plans from the enemy is and will not be effective. So I tell you this in love, God's pure love. I don't have it in me, but I can say it with God's love. As I love on him, his love can flow through me. And I say this to you in love. You've been warned to do the right thing. So please, that's my prayer. Please do the right thing. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking, that you do the right thing. And there's power in prayer. And I'm going to be praying that the Holy Spirit will the Comforter who lives inside of all of us born-again believers, all of us Christian men and women who love God and who believe in the Word of God, who believe in the Bible, that I'm going to pray that the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, our Comforter, will convict you to do the right thing. I wish nothing but the best for each and every one of you and for our children. There are consequences for the decisions that you make. And I hope and pray to God that each and every night that you will hear the Holy Spirit and that you will yield to the Holy Spirit and you will yield to doing the right thing. In God's love, I tell you this, and I warn you in God's love. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Jesus. God bless you all.
Okay, so David, is it both? I'm having a little difficulty reading, so correct me when you come up. Or is it's a RLT?
That's me.
Okay, I apologize.
It's weird. It's wrist. It's Dutch.
Okay, thank you.
Us Dutch people are weird.
No, you're not.
Thank you, guys. I'm a little confused. I thought, and I listened thoroughly in the workshop after last week and the other meeting, that we were voting on a critical ethnic study for the high school. I thought that's what you guys approved. I don't know if I could ask a question, but watching the approval of the cultural ethnic study is, I don't know, is that the same as this? It's different. So I guess really all I need from the community or from you guys for my kids is, I'm a little confused on where this falls in with the ethnic study or if it's separate. It's a little confusing, that's all. And so this is a workshop. You guys are going to go over on how this will or won't or does or is being implemented. Is this something California's already passed and we're just implementing it in our school? Okay, so the workshop's to kind of go over. Okay, because I was looking at it and just the first page, and I'm dying to hear it. I'm very open to hearing it. There's a lot of things we could talk about that the school needs to fix and needs a lot of work on. You guys do better than most schools. I think the education system as a whole has a lot of challenges in the U.S. You guys do better than most districts. That's why I moved here, which wasn't easy. I don't know if you guys have seen the home prices lately. It's not cheap, and the taxes don't go down. But a few things I was thinking about. I think about my 7-year-old. He's autistic. Which has been very hard. My other 2 neurotypical kids have excelled well in life and in your school district and was fairly easy. He's been very difficult, and integrating that kind of disadvantage is really weird. But like seeing that this is for the different grade levels and just a few of my opinions and thoughts when I was reading, like students will develop positive social identities, some clarity on what those identities are and who to establish those. Who dictates whether they're positive or negative, because there's some fluctuation there. Students will develop language and historically and cultural knowledge that affirm and accurately describe. I'm not sure what dictates if it's accurate and who dictates if it's accurate. Something unique about America is, we have a diverse pot, and I learned in the last few meetings here, our community has a very diverse pot. Describe their membership. That's a weird term, membership. I'm a Costco membership, I pay for that. Not sure if that is similar with the multiple identity groups. I'd love to know what those are and who established those in more detail. Students will recognize that people's multiple identities interact and create unique and complex individuals. Seems kind of innate, kind of something that everybody develops individually. I'd love to see how that's going to be taught, especially for like kindergarten. Usually just teaching them how to use a fork in itself is kind of challenging, but to have those as anchor ideas are just really hard for me to understand. Students will express pride, confidence, and healthy self-esteem. That's like kind of a lifelong goal and theory and idea. I think everybody struggles with that even as adults. With denying value, who gives them those values? So there's just a ton of questions that I really have in kind of understanding that, and I hope those kind of get cleared up. It's important to me because my kids' education is one thing, going through life is another, and I feel like we're really walking down a slippery slope as the school inserts itself more and more into what kids should know or think rather than teaching them to think and how to decide for themselves. And I feel like school as a whole over the decades have really gotten away from, we're going to teach you some stuff, but figure out what's right, what's wrong, what do you think is right, and how to challenge those thoughts is what I was taught in school. So I'm very intrigued to see how this is going to get taught. And I'm just here to listen to learn, but those were some specific questions, and this is a long-term journey that we're all in, and definitely want to be a part of that.
Thank you. Christian Rieger. Oh, you concede your time?
Oh, you want to concede your time?
Sure. Yeah,
He
fill
still
out, you
has
need
to
to
fill
fill
the
out a
card.
card. I actually have a blank card here.
You have a card okay, so he's conceded his time here.
Okay. So, conceded, thank you.
So I'm reading a letter from Professor Cheryl Katz to the LAUSD School Board and Superintendent Pulver. Excuse me.
And please, we'd like everybody to stay within the 3 minutes so we can get to the social justice and staff development workshop. Thank you.
So with his 3 and my 3, that'll be 6, and that's about as long as this takes. So, dear esteemed Montesquieu, a French judge, man of letters and political philosopher, the principal source of the theory of separation of powers, once wrote, "There is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of law and in the name of justice." The topic for today is about the inclusion of the term or ideology of social justice, which is being proposed in what is being told to us is an ethnic studies course. What is your definition of social justice? I ask this because there is no such thing. The makeshift term is about the equality of outcome, not equality, accountability and responsibility for one's own actions, which justice demands. Anytime you put a modifier in front of an absolute good, it actually perverts it. By way of example, the word correctness means truth versus falsity. When you put the word political in front of it, it actually misconstrues the meaning. In certain dictatorships, if you say the wrong thing, you will be shot. And political correctness is a term coined by Mao Zedong. So too is the case with the nebulous term of social justice, which is less about fairness under the law and instead entails a redistribution of resources from those who have supposedly unjustly gained them to those who supposedly justly deserve them. That's from Fagan, 2001. One political party always likes to pervert the idea of social justice by asserting its relevance to such a course as relating to certain groups asserted as profiled by police. However, rather than encourage students to follow the rules in school as well as follow the law, this narrative provides the rationale to include it. However, this is not a police reform class nor an anti-law enforcement class. If the purpose of this class is to teach about other cultures, then it's focused on the heroes of many cultures who have contributed to the American story. Many who argued for this class and curriculum stated its necessity based upon the racism that supposedly exists on LAUSD campuses. We have yet to have been provided statistics for or examples of these many instances and how this has actually impacted the education of our children. If there are a few hoodlums, rule breakers on campus, why not deal with them in a disciplinary forum and have them suspended or expelled? Another argument raised was that history in our schools is being taught from a white or a Eurocentric way. If that is true, who is teaching our social studies, history, government, etc. courses? My son has a great history teacher just several years ago here. So if the others are not teaching a diverse curriculum, then hire teachers who can, or augment the lessons with information from the Bob Woodson Foundation, Hillsdale College, the ADL, constitutingamerica.org, etc. Bring in books and excerpts from speeches from reputable sources, not those that push leftist, socialist, Marxist narratives and ideologies like the ones already rejected when presented to the state of California. It has never been explained how this course is going to be taught any differently from the current courses offered in our district in U.S. history, U.S. government, world history, world geography, cultural, human geography, military history, or any of the English courses where reading of books are also required, and information is easily integrated into the curriculum. In the first meeting, we all expressed our views and why we were against the course, and yet it appeared the decision was already predetermined, as it has also been pushed by the left throughout the nation, throughout the United States, and many academic institutions, where parents are realizing the dangers of its adoption. This course has been presented as an elective, yet none of us can recall when so much effort and energy was put into discussing the curricula of those courses that are currently mandatory for graduation and pre-college. Right now, our students are on Zoom and Google Classroom, many struggling with the actual social studies history curricula, not to mention English and mathematics courses. And the scores in the state of California are dwindling. So why is this course being given so much attention and focus? One of the comments made previously was that kids have been asking for this course curriculum. Kids are impressionable. A lot of indoctrination has already been pushed on them by some teachers, friends, and those who belong to certain activist groups. While our children may want to have dessert instead of dinner, as parents and taxpayers, it is our responsibility to ensure that the best informed educational decisions are made for them. The ethnic studies courses that are taught on the college level, which have already come under scrutiny by so many parents and organizations, are the same format it appears that is being pushed into the K through 12 curriculum. To teach a course that purports to teach about the laws, history, culture, heroes, tradition of all ethnicities requires a broad-based knowledge and educational background, yet it does not appear that the person designated to teach the class has a degree in law, history, philosophy, political science, but as to the specificity of this course is currently enrolled in the same type of courses in college that are pushing the same one-sided biased viewpoint that parents who want this course do not fully understand, and those who do fully understand do not want. As an elective, parents and students should expect that accurate, reliable sources in those who are role models would be explored along with the rich traditions and cultures of people who contributed to the American fabric. Thus, That should be the only topic of the curriculum. No social justice section is needed. No 8 white identities, nor the writings of Mr. Zalvia and Christine Sleeters. White bread is needed. No hierarchy triangle of victimhood is needed either. If those other topics are included as part of their curriculum, this course is not about justice, nor about ethnic studies, but rather what many of us have already suspected, a lesson and curriculum pushing critical race theory. As parents, educators, board members, and Americans, I urge you to focus on the original goal that was presented to us, that of treating others with fairness as actual justice demands. Thank you for your time and cooperation. Sincerely, Professor Cheryl B. Katz. Thanks.
Thank you. Arlene Ropel.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Arlene Repke, and I'm here interested in curriculum, especially for the young children. My whole life has been an educator. In fact, I started out teaching right here in Los Alamitos School District. And my daughter graduated Los Al High. We're still in the neighborhood. My granddaughter, grandson graduated Los Al High. Even though I'm retired, education of the child is highly important to me. So I'm just getting exposed to the process that you're working on. So that's why I'm here out of curiosity. I understand that the state of California, the school board, has their suggestions, mandates, dictates on this social justice education, of which I understand the school districts then use as a working model. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's my understanding. But there is some leeway, I think, in each school district as you work up your curriculum and scope and sequence. Following their guidelines, you still have some freedoms in your curriculum. And I guess my question I have today is 2 things. One is transparency to the school board. I find when I was trying to find about this meeting, going to your website, it's not right out there on the front page for the neighborhood to know that this is an important topic for all children and parents. So I'd like to see that a little more out there, I think, for other people to have input. But I don't see yet that, and I hope it will include the Martin Luther King movement, that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there seems to be such a focus on the victim mentality and the bad white population. There were many white people that were part of the Martin Luther King movement that believed in that, and how many laws have we passed to get away from the segregation and the unfairness that were perpetrated on the populations of color? We've come a long way. I would like to see that in the curriculum where we acknowledge, thank God we're in America with our Constitution, that we are given a right for peaceful protest. And our young children may or may not have that understanding. So I think you need both sides of the coin here, not just go so far to the left. And Saul Alinsky, you read his books, and we're marching right down that pattern. So I just hope that our little school district here is responsive to all the needs of all the student bodies. And like what was just brought up earlier, how bad racist are we? That's a surprise. So anyway, I just don't want the baby thrown out with the bathwater. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Harriet Reed.
Good evening to the board and to parents whom I urge to do your homework on critical race theory. You should know that this ethnic studies course is derived from critical race theory. You may think this course will be limited to exploring contributions of ethnic minorities, learning cultural differences, and other kumbaya-sounding topics. However, this curriculum is a very open-ended ideology that wants to turn your child into a social justice warrior. How do I know this? The California Department of Education just voted in curriculum for ethnic studies, derived in part from Tolteca cotton. That name for your research is spelled Tolteka, last name Cauahtin. You will find his views on America are quite radical. He states that the United States was founded on Eurocentric, white supremacist, anti-Black, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, and class-based system brought from Europe. Are these your beliefs? Two other authors quoted in the curriculum are Christine Sleeter, Sleeter, and Miguel Zavala, Zavala. In the interest of time, I would just say their beliefs are on par with Mr. Cotton. The state curriculum for this course actually lists Black Lives Matter as, and I quote, an effective social movement communities have initiated and sustained in response to oppression and systems of power, end quote. Wow. I watched BLM burn, loot, and murder along with Antifa all across America this summer, and yes, it was effective, as the implementation of this class suggests. But is that how you want your children to respond to perceived oppression and systems of power? By terrorizing communities until they comply? Are these your values? When I read critical race theory, I have to wonder why the authors are so intent on making us hate ourselves or each other, all while claiming it's done for social justice. I cannot say what their motivations are, but I can tell you one clear benefit of ramming this down the throats of every college, high school, middle school, elementary school, corporate America, religion, and sports at all levels. It's money. This movement is making billions with a capital B. The BLM organization certainly raked in billions. You really should look it up. Tolteca Cotton was appointed co-chair of the Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee by the California State Board of Education, and they're promoting a book he co-edited as part of the curriculum. Nice coincidence, right? Follow the money. It reminds me of longtime race hustlers like Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Maxine Waters. They fashioned complete careers in inflaming race. They hustle the corporate world, politics, and others into gaining personal millions for themselves and their families, using Black people as bait. They encourage Black people to be victims instead of upstanding citizens, and led them to reject personal responsibility because America is supposedly too racist for them to succeed. All the good they did for Black people could be stuffed in a thimble with room left over. Poverty pimps like this don't live in the communities for which they advocate. They live in neighborhoods most people can't afford, alongside the people they claim are responsible for oppression in the United States. It must be a tough life. Critical race theory is no different. Same hate, different hustle. I'm urging you to not tread down the path that many Black people took who believed in poverty pimps. I remember my mother cried when she canceled her membership to the NAACP many, many years ago. That's when she saw the organization and the civil rights movement take a different turn that she felt was bad for America in general and Black people in particular. We went from demanding excellence of ourselves to blaming others for our woes. School dollars are precious and never more precious than now when every community has been negatively impacted by this pandemic, especially children. If schools persist in implementing curriculum derived from racist ideologies, parents should go to californiaschoolchoice.org. This organization needs your support to get a school choice measure on the next state ballot for California. This will allow existing tax dollars to follow your child to the accredited school of your choice, such as a magnet school, charter school, private school, or parochial schools. It will not cost taxpayers one additional cent. Not only will it give you the opportunity to put your child in a school that reflects your values, the money would stay in your child's name until they're 35 years of age. This allows the money to be used for any type of accredited university, college, or vocational school of your choice. That's californiaschoolchoice.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We now move on to the first workshop, which will be for Measure G and Facilities Projects Update. It will be presented by Mrs. Galicia and Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to introduce Mr. C.J. Nolan, who is going to actually do the presentation for us.
Thank you.
Madam President, honorable members of the board, thank you for having me this afternoon. And we have another Measure G and Facilities Project Update. In this update, we really wanted to highlight some of the smaller projects we have coming up from now and over the summer. So as we move on to the first slide, you can see that we have quite a few projects going on that will take us through the end of this school year and into the next. I will run through them really quick. We have the Los Alamitos Elementary School Kindergarten Playground. We have the Los Alamitos Elementary School Lower Playground, the Lee Elementary School Upper Playground, the Weaver Elementary School Upper Playground, the Hopkinson Elementary School Kindergarten Playground, and the Hopkinson Elementary School Security Fencing Project, the McGaugh Elementary School Gutter Replacement and Storm Drain Modification, the McGaugh Elementary School Pelican Control Systems, and the Oak Middle School HVAC replacement at portable classrooms and the Pelican Control System. Now, by getting through all of our remaining playground projects, it allows us to clear up some space for the solar projects that we'll have coming in the future as well. So it was one of our main goals to really start implementing and getting all of these playgrounds replaced.
Excuse me, Mr. Nolan, will this complete the replacement of all of our playgrounds?
This will complete the replacement. So we're looking by starting next year with all of our playgrounds replaced.
No, typically at the board meetings, the public comment is what would just occurred, and then this is information for the board. But you could certainly ask a question to me afterwards or after the meeting or via email. I'll do the best that I can to assist you.
So starting out with Los Alamitos Elementary School, I wanted to highlight the areas that we will be touching there since we have a couple things going on. You can see the orange playground structure. That's our kindergarten playground replacement located on the lower left-hand side. And then we have our lower playground replacement, which is towards the middle of the picture. And I also wanted to highlight something we're doing throughout all of our campuses, where we're really trying to secure our campuses with vision screen at our fence lines, especially when they face those corporate lots or parking lots that aren't as aesthetically pleasing, and it just doesn't feel as enclosed of an area. So really, we want to be installing a fabric vision screen to help secure our campuses.
Mr. Nolan, I'm not sure I know what a vision screen is. Is it the kind that's opaque, like that would, or is it?
There's several different ways of doing it. You could either put fabric on a chain link fence, or sometimes you'll see like the slatted fence. So it's anything that would really just block vision from people outside of the fence into the school.
And do you know which one we're leaning towards?
It depends on the campus. So at Los Alamitos Elementary School, for example, we'd be looking at more of a fabric option. But if some of our campuses have the slats already implemented at other parts of the campus, we'd be looking at that option just to make things congruent throughout the campus. And we'll jump into the details of each of these playgrounds right now. So you can see this is the overview of our elementary school kindergarten playground at Los Alamitos Elementary School. You can notice that there's two separate areas that will both be replaced. Now, I do want to highlight that the concrete path that is shown in the overhead will be remaining, but it is not shown in the rendering. So this is the overhead view of the playground that will be replaced. Now, the concrete path will be running in between those two structures. So this is the playground. This is a better angle of the playground at Los Alamitos Elementary School. So this is the kindergarten option. If you recall earlier at Hopkinson Elementary School, when we removed the swings, we looked at a bigger option for our playground. That is something that we're still looking at Los Alamitos Elementary School, and we're going over with the site, and we may amend at a later date. Here's another angle of the playground. You can see that it has two slides. This is a kindergarten playground, so it is a little bit less substantial than some of our bigger playgrounds in the upper and lower playground areas. And we'll move on to the second playground over at Los Alamitos Elementary School, where you can see right in the center, that is the playground that will be replaced. And we have a bigger structure, really similar to what we did over at McGaugh Elementary School. So has the same slides and the same climbing walls that we installed over at McGaugh Elementary School. And it also has the rock wall. One of the things we did ask is if we could have the platforms lowered a bit, because we did receive some comments from the public that it may have been a little high over at McGaugh.
But they are age specific.
They are
correct?
age specific, yeah, correct. So it's hard to see, but you can see it says ages 5 to 12 in this drawing, right, in the lower right. It's a little bit difficult to see because it's in white. Over at Lee Elementary School, this is the overhead view of our existing playground. And as we go through all these playgrounds, you'll see that we are replacing the sand with a rubberized surface. This is also a safety measure for our students as well. And with the footprint or the size of this playground area, we're able to keep the swings while also replacing the playground structure. Some of our smaller footprints, we have difficulty fitting them both, but we were able to make it fit over at Lee Elementary School due to a larger footprint. You can see over at Lee Elementary School, this is one of the newer options that they have, and this is what was selected by the site. I do want to note that please disregard the color. The color has not been selected yet. So this is just more of a visual for the design. Once we approve the design and we begin fabrication, we could adjust the colors to whatever the site or whatever the district would like. I believe our vendor just matched what we had out at our campuses currently, so, but we can change after at any time. So one of the cool features about this structure is as a triple wide slide, and it also is it's somewhat of a hybrid where it's able to incorporate some of the rope play structures in with the more traditional play structures. It does offer slightly less shade. As you can see, these have hard tops over some of the climbing apparatuses, but it does offer shade. It's just less shade than you saw with the previous model over at LAE.
CJ, what is the part in the middle, the kind of oval?
So that is a rope climbing apparatus. So it allows students to climb through that center portion as well. We've talked to some of our other the administration at some of our other campuses like Rossmore Elementary School, where they've had great success with their rope climbing structures, and we've been told that it's widely used by all of our students. So it's really nice that they're offering some of these hybrid structures where you kind of get the best of both worlds. Here's another angle from the opposite side. So you can see that there is quite a few rope structures in that one area, but there's also quite a bit of climbing, more traditional apparatuses to the left. Moving on to Weaver, the playground replacement that is being replaced is the remaining sand playground on the right-hand side of this picture. It is a square area that currently does not have any swings, so we are only replacing the structure in this area. It's the overhead view and also all of the components on the right. And they also went with a similar apparatus. Again, please disregard the colors. This is, they can be changed at any time. I believe they were just matching what was existing to the site. It is a lot of yellow, so. But it is a similar structure to what Lee selected as well. A lot of our site administration went over this with their teaching staff, and they really liked the hybrid. Here's another angle. It's slightly different configuration than Lee Elementary School because the footprint is different. So we're working with a square footprint here, where at Lee Elementary School, we had more of a linear footprint. So it's the same play apparatus, is just configured in a different way. And I wanted to go over Hopkinson Elementary School real quick. I know we previously have went over this. The material has been fabricated and construction is scheduled to begin over spring break, which is in 2 weeks or so. And the contractor is scheduled to begin mobilization next week. So that project will be the first playground that's really going to be getting started, and we're looking to finish that prior to the summer. So COVID's really given us unique opportunities to get a head start on some of these projects where our coordination with the site allows us to begin earlier than we typically would be during a normal school year. So where we can do that, we are taking full advantage of it. You can see that this is a larger kindergarten playground. This is what I was referring to when you compare to the option over at LAE. We may want to increase the size over at LAE to be something more similar to that of Hopkinson. If you recall, the Hopkinson original playground footprint, it had swings that would no longer fit with the new required clearances and inspections. So in lieu of adding swings, we increased the size of the structure itself. And then I briefly wanted to go over the Hopkinson security fencing again. We went over this project in a previous workshop, but the project is currently rebidding, and we have a job walk being hosted with contractors this week. So we weren't feeling very comfortable with the bid results we got on the last bid. So there's a large disparity in the numbers. So we wanted to really tighten things up and get the best number possible for this project. Once bids are received, the project will be recommended to the board for award in April. So the bids are due right now, April 7th. And we have a job walk this week with contractors.
CJ, are we looking at the same wrought iron?
So right now we have wrought iron in the parking lot facing on the left-hand side, where we would have the vinyl chain link, black vinyl chain link on the street-facing side. So that's similar to what we have on the rest of the campus. It would give us a more congruent look in the front parking lot area, where we also have wrought iron, I want to say on the side facing the parking lot. So we would be doing wrought iron down, and then it would be on the street-facing side, it would be black vinyl chain link. Correct. We also have the black vinyl chain link in the parking lot of Hopkinson Elementary, where it's a lower, it provides a barrier. So it's they're both used throughout the campus. McGaugh Elementary School gutter replacement and storm drainage modification. So due to the corrosion at McGaugh from the saltwater air, our gutter systems require to be replaced quite often, just because it's so corrosive over time. So we are in need of replacing the entire gutter system over at McGaugh right now. What we are replacing it with is what's called a Kynar finished gutter system. It's designed to really last a great deal of time, longer than a traditional like powder coated gutter system would last. With those gutter systems, we are also installing concrete V-ditch. gutters that would be able to help shed water to the main storm drain for the site. So this site is configured on a slope where we have each of these terraces that kind of drain water down to the next. And in the next slide, you could kind of see a drawing I kind of made to illustrate this. And this is the problem that we have at McGaugh. So when it does rain, we have the water will run off the building at the higher tier and run down and sit against the lower building. And that when water sits against a building over time, it will find a way in and it causes significant repairs. So right now, our buildings do not have gutters on the back side of the building. So you can see in red, that's where we will be adding a gutter system to the backside. And we'll also be adding a concrete V-ditch to sit at the lower building to catch any runoff before it hits that building. And that way it'll help shed it to the street.
I have seen Lake McGaugh several times. In fact, there's several Lake McGaughs throughout the whole campus. So my first question has got to be, this is a great idea. We have to get the water to get off of the campuses, and it's going into a storm drain. So the people who live in the coves are not going to be flooded. Is that correct?
No, they will not be.
Okay, I'm sure you were going to say that, but I had to ask the question anyway. And are we just doing these concrete gutters in the grassy area between the buildings?
Correct, absolutely. So right now, if you've been to McGaugh on a rainy day, which I'm sure you have, you've seen that we actually have these pathways in between the buildings that will flood. We have to create kind of makeshift bridges for our students to cross. Yeah. We're really trying to prevent that and fix that issue. That was one of the first times I visited McGaugh. It was one of the first issues that was brought up, and it's something that I think we can correct with the.
Thank you.
We're confident we can correct. Now, in the picture below, you could see how it is terraced. And you can also see the arrows pointing to the right. That's the direction we're trying to sheet the water to. And while we're also over at McGaugh and over at Oak, we will be installing Pelican HVAC control systems. So just to recap, with Measure K, when we were modernizing all of our campuses, we replaced all the HVAC units of our permanent structure buildings. One of the things we didn't do is we didn't replace the HVAC units of our portable buildings. And this was probably because at the time they were too new. But as 10 years later, they're going on 15 to 20 years in place, which means we really need to start looking at replacing our portable classroom HVAC units. And one of the things that Pelican is able to provide while we're already doing this work is it's a control system that provides analytics, scheduling, and diagnostics of the complete unit. So at any time, we're able to remotely view if the units are functioning properly, or we'll be notified if we have to make a repair, which allows us to be proactive in a sense where we don't have to wait for staff to complain that the HVAC is not working for us to go out in order to fix it. One of the campuses where we have implemented the Pelican system is the high school campus, where it's been great. It's been a huge assistance through COVID-19, where we're able to really monitor the air cycle refresh rates in each classroom. And it's able to give us those analytics so we can review it with staff, make sure that we're reaching those rates, those air refresh rates, that we anticipate for each classroom, especially in our buildings like the 700 building where there might not be doors or windows that can be opened.
CJ, is there an indefinite longevity for the portable classrooms if we're investing in all of this?
So like the lifetime of a portable classroom itself, it's usually about 30 years, I would say, at the top. So the HVAC units on those portable classrooms is usually from 15 to 20. So a lot of ours are right at that 15-year mark. So it would be a good time to replace them if we do intend. And we've already done a study on our portable classrooms that we may end up removing in the future, where we wouldn't be replacing those units. We might be trying to modify them if that's more appropriate.
So I just want to be clear. So this is the control for the existing HVAC units, because some of them are relatively new. I mean, maybe 10 years old, 12 years old. But in this process, you're also saying that some in the portables, the HVAC may need to be replaced.
Right. So with HVAC, we have our controls, which is our thermostat, and does all of our diagnostics and all of our readings.
Right.
And then we actually have our units as well. So the units would only be replaced at the portables, where our units at our permanent buildings are in good shape and they can stay.
Great.
But we would be replacing the controls, or what most people would call just the thermostat. But it does a lot more than that, so we typically would call it controls. And that way we could have a full view of the campus and see make sure everything's functioning properly. And Pelican is able to be retrofitted onto our existing equipment. That's one of the main reasons that we really are looking at this option. We shopped a lot of vendors, and this was the only one that did not require a complete invasive, I want to say, installation process. And I briefly wanted to go over the solar update. I'm sorry that the font looks a little small on this slide. But the 7 of our sites are ready for approval. We do have 3 sites that still require further review. Those sites include Oak Middle School, where we're determining the easement flexibility with Southern California Edison. We've started those discussions. Southern California Edison is not the quickest to respond, but we are being very persistent. McGaugh Elementary School, we are working on a rendering, and we're also in discussions with the city on removing the 3 trees. Lee Elementary School, we are surveying the neighbors regarding the location of the array, or the proposed location, tomorrow. So we made an online survey where we'll be leaving door hangers to those, I want to say 7 to 10 neighbors in that area. And we'll also, if they are available and have time to talk or discuss, we'll be going door to door to discuss it with them as well. I also didn't want to leave out the high school multi-story building, because we are doing so much over there that it deserves a mention. So over the last several weeks, we've been really preparing, and we have been pouring concrete on each of the decks of the multi-story building. So you can see this is from the 3rd floor deck, where we have our steel decking and our rebar and all of our utility rough-in coming through the concrete. And you can see we started pouring. This is early in the morning when we first started pouring, working our way back on the 3rd floor. You can see this is the bottom floor, and I wanted to highlight this picture because it shows all the waterproofing that's being installed over the concrete, and it also shows all of the duct straps. So one of the unique things we did with this multi-story building is we have a 3D model of the building. So we actually know exactly where all of our HVAC ducts will be going, all of our water piping, gas piping. So we're able to drop in these duct straps or attachments prior to pouring concrete, so that we don't have to attach it with I guess what would be called an anchor rod at a later date. So we're able to pre-punch those into the deck so they're ready to go when we have equipment coming in. And this is that same view on the 3rd floor after the concrete pour. You can actually start seeing the outline of the classrooms take place. You can see the curbs on the left. Those would be like the entrances to the classroom. And along each of the demising walls in between the classrooms, you can see the utilities coming up. And I really like this picture because it gives you a real full view of all of the intricate concrete work that is taking place on each floor, where you can see the outline of the utility rooms, the outline of the classrooms, and you could really start seeing things take shape. We had a pre-installation meeting with our metal stud framing contractor, and we're going to be starting to frame those interior walls and those exterior walls relatively soon. So I hope this can kind of give everyone a picture of all of the walls eventually being there. I know I could see it, but sometimes I just wanted to give something that would be a little more visual. You can also see the galvanized metal stairs that were installed as well. It's one of 3 staircases on this building. And then I also wanted to discuss the other upcoming large projects that are Measure G bond projects at Los Alamitos High School. So really, last time we spoke, there was 3 main projects where we had the 2nd gymnasium, the classroom modernization, and a performing arts center modernization. One of the things that we've been discussing on internally and with our consultants is finalizing cost estimates for 4 different options of the gymnasium: 3-court versus 2-court, competition versus practice, and where that lines up in a cash flow sense so that we're able to still effectively complete our classroom modernization and our performing arts center modernization. On the opposite end of the project priority, we're looking at preparing a cost itemized menu of modernization options. So with the modernization, we can do so much in terms of scope. So we really wanted to cost item each area so that we're able to effectively get the most for the dollars we put in, get the most value for every dollar we put in modernizing these classrooms. And I just wanted to also add to it and say the second gymnasium is something that we'd probably be trying to schedule ahead of the classroom modernization, because we would want the classroom modernization project to really be the final project of the bond that kind of wraps up all of the good work we're doing at the high school. And one of the other options with the modernization is if we were trying to save on costs or minimize an overall cost depending on the scale of the Performing Arts Center modernization, is that something we possibly want to encapsulate into one project? And those are all things we're going over with the needs of the site as well.
The other reason we would not do the classroom modernizations at this time is we're trying to complete the multi-story. We would not have enough physical space for interim housing until the multi-story is completed, teachers have moved in, and we may have to even use some of our older portables before we remove them as interim housing when we do the modernization of the remaining classrooms.
Absolutely.
So in prioritizing for the Performing Arts Center, does that involve, is it like David Molenkamp and a group of, who's doing the prioritizing on levels of importance?
So when I said prioritizing earlier, I was really meaning in terms of schedule. If we're talking in terms of scope, we would be in contact with the site administrators and allow them, so that would be David Molenkamp as a assistant principal or whoever they bring in. If they want to bring in their teaching staff, then for example, with the multi-story, we met with every individual specific user group for every area. And doing the administration of a high school, you meet with everybody. So we met with the front desk reception staff. So we would be meeting with everybody that we would be doing work.
Yeah, I just want to remind, there's more than show choir that uses the auditorium. We have dance, we have drama, we have instrumental vocal music, a wide array of individuals that would use that, as well as the ultimate prioritization is going to be the remaining funds that are available.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments? I think it's really going to be joyful that the playgrounds will be finished when we hopefully come back to fully traditional learning in the fall. So thank you for keeping everything on track.
Not
Thanks,
a problem.
CJ.
We're excited to be there. Thank you.
Okay, at this time we move to our second workshop, District 5-Year Professional Development Plan Update and an Introduction to the Social Justice Standards. That will be Mrs. Reed, our Deputy Superintendent, and Nadia Williams, our Human Relations TOSA. So thank you.
Thank you so much, President Davidson. It really is my pleasure to present to the board tonight, and really just a pleasure to have Mrs. Williams, our teacher on special assignment of diversity, equity, inclusion, join us tonight. As I know, it's been a not normal year for us in terms of board meetings, and so this has been our first opportunity to really bring her forward to the board as well. And so today we'll really be previewing 3 items in this presentation: a potential revision of the 5-year professional development plan, an introduction to the social justice standards, as well as outlining next steps. And so I did want to take one brief opportunity here to really just remind the board and our community at large about the Los Alamitos Unified School District 5-year professional development plan. It's something that we're very proud of here in the district. We offer all new certificated hires, whether this is their first year of teaching or their 20th year of teaching, an opportunity to join us in a 5-year journey with the educators who they are hired alongside. So we operate in a cohort learning model. So if you're hired next year in year one, all of our teachers, preschool through high school, stay together through 5 years on this journey. It really not only bonds them as teachers new to our district, but also really just expands the idea of a professional learning community in our district. With only 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school, having teachers talk between the school sites and the sharing of best practices, ideas, and innovation, it's really just amazing to see the friendships and bonds that are created amongst our certificated staff as they really go on this 5-year journey together. Also, it allows us to make sure that our teachers are all trained in common instructional practices, really with the goal that all of our students are receiving equitable instruction. So you know that regardless of which 5th grade classroom you're in or which English teacher you have freshman year of high school, all of our teachers have really undergone the same training, and not only training, but also coaching. So I think something that's really unique here in our school district is the emphasis that we place on individual coaching of teachers and the opportunity to really engage in instructional networking. There's nothing like being able to go and see an expert, someone who is highly skilled in their craft, and observe a demonstration lesson in a colleague's classroom, and to have a colleague come back and provide you that peer-to-peer feedback as you're really honing your craft. And so we really do refer to those common instructional practices as our district signature practices. So our 5-year PD plan, it looks different every year. Much like we meet the needs of our students in our classrooms every year, we also meet the needs of our teachers. So when we have a year one cohort, my team sits down with the principals, we look at the resumes, we look at the training teachers have come in with. Are we looking at a group of all year one teachers, or are we looking at a group of teachers who have wide and varied experience? And we make shifts to that 5-year professional development plan to meet the individuals inside our cohorts as well. And so currently, we have a large repertoire of areas in which we train our teachers. You'll see from the list above that some of those are TK-12 instructional practices, like depth and complexity thinking prompts or Socratic seminar. And some are specific to levels, like cognitively guided instruction at our elementary level, or instructional networking at our 6-12 level. And so we are making a recommendation to include a new umbrella of practices and trainings, which would be culturally responsive instruction. Under that umbrella would include our current restorative practices training that we do provide for all of our teachers that are onboarded into the school district. And so, yes, Mr. Fayette. Yes.
Like every year we do a review of it?
Sometimes every year we do a review of it, but really it's if we're going to add something new to it, or if we want to make sure the board is up to date on practices that we would be sharing with teachers.
So this is brought up because we're going to add something new to the teacher's toolkit to help them progress.
That is the point of the workshop tonight,
okay,
yes.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. And so if we really want to look at a definition of culturally responsive instruction, it's really about weaving together rigor and relevance, providing windows into the cultural heritage and experience of others. We believe that all students benefit from learning to honor their own and one another's culture and heritage and their lived experience and lived realities. And so I do want to share, I know we've had some questions already from the community tonight, that the social justice standards that Mrs. Williams is going to talk about is separate from our ethnic studies course. So ethnic studies course is a complete content and curriculum, which we have not brought forward our course yet to the board and have not put on the resources and materials and curricula on for community preview yet. What we're bringing forward for explanation tonight is a set of anchor standards that teachers would use parallel to our already adopted curriculum inside of our school sites. And so we did have lots of copies of the social justice standards in our lobby this evening, and board members should have a copy of those at the dais as well. And so when we look at adding the umbrella of culturally responsive instruction, at this point, our plan really is to have 3 prongs of which we would provide trainings for our teachers. One would be on the diversification of text, really the inclusion of culturally relevant literature, and also a lens by which we would evaluate textbooks and supplemental materials moving forward. Practices of inclusive classroom, so many of those listed there are already areas in which we provide training for our teachers, and so we would be shifting some of those social emotional learning trainings that we now offer under the umbrella of inclusive classroom practices. Things like morning meetings, our restorative practices, community building circles that we use inside our classrooms on a daily basis, really to be able to connect our students in the classroom and build that safe academic area where our students thrive. And then cultural competence, the ability to help students appreciate and celebrate their cultures of origin while gaining knowledge of and fluency in other standards and other cultures. And so that's really where the social justice standards would come into play. They would be a tool, a supplemental resource for our teachers to use as they engage students in discussion. And so I really am proud to turn over the presentation at this point to our teacher on special assignment, Mrs. Nadia Williams, who's going to really give us a more broad and in-depth overview of the social justice standards. Button, you got it?
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Reed, for the continued support and for the opportunity to be able to talk about the social justice standards. President Davidson and esteemed members of the board, I want to thank you first before I get started in social justice standards, because this is the first time I've been able to kind of be out there as the TOSA for this work. I want to thank you for the opportunity today, and then also for the opportunity to have this role. It really is with great pride that I take on this responsibility with my other teacher colleagues in having work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have been working really hard the last couple of months along with educators across the county, across the state, across many states, also working with Danielle in creating classrooms that are going to be inclusive and for all students. And so I'm going to get right into the social justice standards. So what are they? They're a set of anchor standards. They're age-appropriate learning outcomes. They're divided into 4 domains. You're going to hear this a lot today. Identity, diversity, justice, and action. So they're standards. They provide common language. They have organizational structure. So when we're talking about that toolkit, it's structured, right? It's not just, oh, look at this, but it's very structured. Teachers can use them to guide their curriculum development. Administrators can use them to make schools equitable and safe. The standards are leveled K through 12, and they include school-based scenarios to show what an anti-bias attitude and behavior may look like in the classroom. So who developed them? So Learning for Justice is a website that provides free resources for those working with children. The original version of these standards were released in 1991. The language has been updated throughout the last 30 years. They just went through a name change earlier this year. They were Teaching Tolerance. They changed it to Learning for Justice, and it was founded in 1991 by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Learning for Justice was originally created to prevent the growth of hate by reducing prejudice. So over the last 30 years, their work has been centered around justice and action that students and educators can take to realize change. Their resources are developed with the goal in mind of inclusivity in the curriculum and school communities. So just to give you an idea of the work that I've been doing and also what other schools are using these. There are pockets of schools within Newport Mesa, Fullerton, Laguna Beach, and those are just to name a few. OCDE is offering courses in culturally responsive instruction, and part of the training program focuses on the social justice standards. Museum of Tolerance also has trainings. Their focus is on the standards as well in conjunction with existing curriculum. So why the social justice standards? It really gives the teachers a way to engage in having conversations and questioning around those 4 domains: identity, diversity, justice, and action. And the goals of the standards within identity is for each student to demonstrate self-awareness, confidence, family pride, positive social identities. The goal of diversity is for each student to express comfort and joy in diversity, accurate language to name it, to see those differences, deep, caring human connections. The goal of justice is for each student will increase, recognize unfairness, having language to describe unfairness and understand that unfairness hurts. And then the action piece. Each student will demonstrate empowerment and the skills to act with others or alone against prejudice and or discriminatory actions. So the other wonderful thing about the social justice standards is that they align with the Common Core state standards and college, career, and civic life social studies standards. So here are the anchor standards, the domains. So we have 4 domains, and then within those domains, there are anchor standards. So I just shared with you the goal. This is how those goals would be achieved. Now this right here is a K through 12 view of it. And there are 20 anchor standards, 5 in each of the domains. And so now I'm gonna share with you what this would look like. So in your little pamphlet you got, your booklet you got on the social justice standards, you'll notice that these are even broken down further for age appropriateness. So a lesson in identity is not gonna look the same in a kindergarten classroom as it's gonna look at a high school level. So they are appropriate to the age of the student. So what does this look like? For identity, I just pulled a standard and I'm giving you an example so you can kind of see how it really just, we're putting it with what we're already, with the curriculum we're already using. So students will recognize that people's multiple identities interact and create unique and complex individuals. And what would this look like for a teacher? In the upper grades, we use a novel study of Tiger Rising, and we learn and focus on symbolism and how characters have multiple identities and how those identities interact and make that person who they are. And so we get to meet 2 really complex individuals that are totally opposite from each other, and they're really great friends. And so what could a teacher do with this in the class? They can have the students create a virtual classroom where they're applying what they've learned about symbolism, and they are using symbolism to identify their multiple identities. And they're sharing that with each other. And they're gonna realize that one identity does not make me who I am. Multiple identities make me who I am. And then our second domain, diversity. Students will respond to diversity by building empathy, respect, understanding, and connection. And so this is the grades 2 through 3 example. The Name Jar, which is an amazing book if you've ever read it. I have used it in my class. Other teachers at other sites have used it as well. In this instant, a teacher can use this. We use close reading. That's one of our practices in our classrooms. Close reading to where they're reading about the book, they're using depth and complexity. They're really doing what they usually do with it, but what do we do with that? So give you a little background of the story really quick. It's about a little girl that has come to America from Korea, and her name is very hard to say. And so the kids are trying to say it and they're messing it up, and she's like, I don't want that name anymore. But that name means so much to her. So when they're trying to figure out what they could call her, they're all giving her their favorite name, and none of them matched. So long story short, at the very end, the kids learn her name, and she's able to teach them and tell them about her name. So when we talk about relevance, and rigor and relevance of the standards, the students will now learn about their names and their classmates' names and what their names are, what are the origin of their names. And then they can, which I think is awesome, is really look at and brainstorm strategies on how to respectfully approach unfamiliar names. I do that all the time. I'm like, how do I say that? So really giving kids tools on how do I address that. And then justice, our third domain. Students will recognize stereotypes and relate to people as individuals rather than representatives of groups. So this could be a middle school lesson that a teacher could use. I pulled this right from the NGSS science standards, but how organisms are influenced by environmental factors. And so a lesson could look like this. Learning about melanin and the evolution of skin color. And with that, students will be able to, within that unit, because it's a whole unit or a whole standard, within that unit, they could do a lesson on that and then learn how the environmental factors influence organisms. And then pulling together, because we, especially in LoSal, we love that rigor. So being able to keep it across the discipline and taking that famous quote from Martin Luther King, why it's important to judge people by their character and not by the color of their skin. So being able to have that conversation in the class with the students. And then action. Students will recognize their own responsibility to stand up to inclusion, prejudice, and injustice. After some of our high school, they read To Kill a Mockingbird. And so really they're gonna do what they always do with their novel study. But then at the end, looking at that statement, which some of them do, and analyzing, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. And so the students will answer that, and then they will also answer the question of, why do some people stand up for justice and stand up for unfairness and some don't? So what would that look like? So they will pull an example, a relevant real world example to help answer that question. So I'm hoping after my presentation and showing you how the social justice standards can be used with the curriculum that we already have in place in our classrooms, TK through 12th grade. So thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. That was great. Today we were at Hopkinson, and in the lower grades, each student had been able to create this paper doll of his or her own identity with the costumes of their culture, and then they wrote about it, and you could just see the great conversations trying to understand the differences and appreciate what they had to offer. So we're seeing it in the books that you used as examples. I know about the text, outstanding choices. Thank you.
So really our next steps from here, I've outlined them. At our April 13th board meeting, when we return from our spring recess, we'll be bringing the social justice standards on the board agenda for a 30-day community preview. So they'll be available, that'll be the first opportunity after tonight's workshop that they be available for public comment. So tonight was really just an informational workshop to educate the board, let our community hear about them, give them an opportunity, be familiar with them, and have multiple opportunities to come forward and give public comment to the board. Mr. Fayette? Those are the social justice standards.
Oh, great. So this is what we're going to be looking at April 13th to
Absolutely.
open it. Okay, thank you.
You got it. And then we'd be coming back at the April 27th meeting, and we wouldn't be taking any action on the social justice standards. It would still just be open for public comment. And then coming back on the May 11th Board of Education meeting, the social justice standards would be on the board agenda as an action item for a potential approval as a supplemental resource for teachers to access to parallel the curriculum that we've already adopted in our school district. So that would be the final opportunity for public comment on the social justice standards. If approved between May 12th and June 11th, our last day of school, Nadia Williams, our teacher on special assignment, would hold introduction training on the standards at each individual school site meetings to just really kind of do a general overview like she did for the Board of Education tonight for each of our staffs and let them know about some trainings on the standards that we would potentially be holding if they're approved through our summer professional development opportunity that we call LoSal Connects. And then if they were approved, they would be added into our 5-year professional development plan as one of the many offerings that we offer teachers to be able to come and receive training and coaching, a lesson plan, unit design on to really help guide their practice across the content and curriculum. So to make sure they're really accessible for our community at large, These, as well as any other item that's on a community 30-day preview, is available on our website. So this is the front of our district website. If you click on the Education Services tab, what pops up is a menu, and the very top item, you'll see it says textbook and supplemental materials on community preview. Anything that's on community preview is listed there. So currently, you can see there's only one item that's on community preview, and it's really not on community preview until Tuesday, April 13th. So right there, if you were to click on that link to preview the social justice standards, our families or community members would be able to download a full copy of those standards. You can see that they are for TK-12. This is just an informational workshop, Tuesday, March 23rd. They're scheduled to begin community preview on Tuesday, April 13th. And then they're scheduled for a vote by our Board of Education currently on Tuesday, May 11th. So you'll also notice that there are no other items listed on 30-day community preview. So I do want to make it clear to our community at large as well that we have not brought forward a curriculum for our ethnic studies course here in this school district. What we brought forward to our Board of Education is just a proposal for a course. Many community members that speak tonight about a state-adopted model curriculum for ethnic studies that we are not adopting. We have been working hard with our team of teachers at the high school, as well as partnership with Danielle Navamaharis, who is our Human Relations Advisory Council consultant, and Mrs. Williams to develop our course. We haven't brought forward those resources yet. We hope to bring them forward after our spring recess, and so they would also be listed there as well. So they're available online right now. So April 13th is just the date by which it'll be the first time they come on community preview. So we wanted to make sure that we really extended the opportunity for our community to be able to give public comment by doing an informational workshop first and then bringing them back. So there's multiple opportunities for community preview. If we would have brought them forward for supplemental material tonight, that would have been a shortened window of community participation, because we would have brought them forward at our April 13th, or sorry, one meeting after April 13th. So we would have brought them forward, to April 13th meeting for action. So this actually just gives the community a longer time to be able to read the standards and be able to have multiple opportunities to address our Board of Education.
And I think what the question is that they haven't been moved forward to the board. So under that criteria, they're not available. It doesn't mean that they're not available, because Mrs. Reed just said they were available. Correct, Mrs. Reed?
Yep, they're available for download right now if you were to go to our website, as well as the copies that we had available here tonight.
And Andrea, can I just make a very positive comment? As I've toured the 9 schools now, yay, I've been to all of them. It is so apparent the quality of the staff development program, the 5-year program, because you can walk in and see, I'll pick on CGI, you can see it being used throughout the district. So kudos on that.
Thank you. That warms my heart.
Keep it up. Keep going with it.
I just had a quick question. I agree with Chris about how the program, the development program is great. And this is for, just if you could include, and I'm going to be looking for it the next time we bring it up, is what are social identities, like just examples of them. Because I think in my head what I think of, but I'm not sure if I have the right things that you're talking about.
So of course it's age appropriate. The other thing about the social justice standards and the framework of like how you roll them out, you'll notice it's very question based. So it's based on the students, like your identity. We talk about culture throughout our schools. Culture is a group that you belong to. So that would be identities. Did that answer the question?
Do you want us to give an example, Mr. Fayette?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Why don't you give us an example of an identity?
It could be age, it could be race, it could be religion, it could be whatever you associate yourself with, or where your group identity is.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's based on what I find is my identity.
So I'd be male, follically challenged.
Yes.
Lack of exercise.
For younger students, could that also include, Mrs. Williams, that I'm a baseball player?
Yes.
I'm a dancer.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
My students say all the time in the classroom, they're in and out. They identify with being an in and out eater. So it's really for kids so that they can feel good about who they are.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And isn't it also for students with special needs as
Yes.
well as an agenda, which is
Absolutely. Inclusivity crosses over multiple areas.
Just a reminder, the public comment would have been earlier during the board meeting, but there will be 3 other board meetings where you could address your public comment. And if you have a specific question, one of our staff members would be more than willing to meet and answer your questions. All of our bylaws are under their website, but if you email me, I'll be happy to show you where they are. Yeah.
Mrs. Hill?
I just want to say that I really appreciate you bringing forward something that gives structure on how we can apply this and how we can apply it with the curriculum that we already have. And you did an amazing job giving those examples, showing how that would be used in the classroom with what we're already doing. And so I'm just really gratefully appreciative of how you put this workshop together so that we can move and continue to move through this process. Thank you very much, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
And I think that also the way that everything evolves in this district with Common Core, we didn't necessarily adopt somebody else's curriculum, somebody else's ideas. We took our own staff and went through multiple staff developments, worked together, gathered information, and PTA, different organizations all had feedback on it. And the curriculum we developed was very reflective of the will of the staff and the community. And I believe that we're all mindful of what direction we want to take. And I think that, Mrs. Williams, we're thrilled you're our TOSA. And I know what all the hard work you've been doing and the training you've been going through and the way that your teachers are really very excited about you leading them. So thank you. You did an outstanding job. I loved the examples you gave at different age levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So at this time, that concludes our workshop. We will go into closed session and be back again at 6:30. Thank you.